Welcome to LIVEDAF, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Eruvin Daf Yud. We're on Daf Yud Gimel with base towards the bottom, right at the Mishnah, which is 5 lines from the bottom. It says the Mishnah, HaKoira She'amru, the Koira, this beam that we have learnt about up until this point, which is going to be placed across the entranceway to the Mavi, to create that separation from Shesarabim. It needs to be wide enough, Rechava Kedei Lekabel Ariach, to support an Ariach. What is that? The Ariach is Chatzi Levena, a half of a brick, Shlosh Tfachim. So the Levena was 3 Tfachim long, by 3 Tfachim wide, it was a square. The Ariach was a Levena split in half, split into 2. So they would use the half Levena for construction, and the Koira needs to be able to support the Ariach. Therefore, the Koira needs to be a tefach wide. Let's take a look at Rashi, 16 lines from the bottom. Masnisin rechava kedei lekabel ariach. Why does it need to have that ability to support an ariach? It says Rashi shetehei doim lekvius. It should appear like something permanent. It should have that permanence, resemblance. Livnei selei binyan, which is meant to have a building built atop that beam. So it's meant to give the impression of a construction beam. You place it above the entranceway, which is meant to sustain a ceiling, a roof, perhaps a second floor. So the Koira has to have some sort of permanence to it. Therefore, it needs to be wide enough to support a brick. Continues Rashi, V'ariach chatzi levena shel gimel tfachim. A riach is a split levena. A levena is 3 tfachim. Nimtz ariach tefach mechza roichav, resulting in the riach being half of 3, which means it has a width of 1.5 tfachim. So this ariach now is going to be 3 tfachim in length and 1.5 tfachim wide. And the Koira needs to be wide enough to support the ariach. Continues the Mishnah. Dayo lekoira, it is enough for the Koira shetehei rochava tefach, that it be a tefach wide, kedei lekabel ariach l'rochvai, to support an ariach placed on its width. Meaning you have the Koira with this ariach which is 3 long and 1.5 wide, and you place the ariach like this on the Koira. The Koira needs to be a tefach wide to support the ariach, which is actually 1.5 tefachim wide. The Gemara will ask how this works out. Continues the Mishnah, Rochava kedei lekabel ariach. So the Koira needs to be wide enough to support the ariach. Ubriya kedei lekabel ariach. Likewise, it needs to be strong enough. It needs to be strong material that has the ability to actually support the brick placed upon it. Rabbi Doimer, Rechava. It just needs to be wide enough. Even though it's not strong enough. Using weak material, it can't actually support a heavy brick, that's okay. Continues the Mishnah. An example of that would be, if the Koira was made of straw reeds, we treat it, we view it as though it's made of metal, in which case it can sustain this brick. And the point here is not just make-believe. The point is that since the Chachamim required him to present a Koira which conforms, at least in size, to the configuration of your typical beam used for building purposes, so that already sends the message, it gives the impression of separateness. Look, this is a beam which has the size of your typical construction beam. It's making an entranceway. It's creating that separation between Shesarabim and the Mavi. So going to Rabbi Yehuda reply the concept of a rain. We visualize it, we view it as though it's made of the appropriate material. And same thing regarding the positioning of the Koira according to Rabbi Yehuda. Even though practically it's placed in a way where you can't place a brick on it. For instance, akuma, it's lying crooked. We view it as though it's lying straight, which can support a brick. Agula, for instance, if it's round, so it's a round beam, which cannot support a brick. We view it and treat it as though it is square. Now, how do we know how wide, how large this circle is meant to be to ensure that it has the proper width of a tefach? Says Mishnah, very simple. We apply the formula of kol sheyesh be'kefa shleisha tefachim. Whatever object has a circumference of 3 tefachim, then you can be sure that yesh b'richav tefach, that it has the diameter of a tefach. So if you have a beam, which is a round beam, with a circumference of 3 tefachim, then you know the diameter is a tefach, and it is kosher for the koira. So this is all the words of Rabbi Yehuda, that although it's crooked, it's round, we treat it as though it can practically support a brick, because, at least in the configuration, the size, it has the ability to do so. Continues the Gemara. So the Mishnah told us that the koira is meant to be a tefach wide in order to support the oriach. But how wide is the oriach? It's 1.5 tefachim. It says more tefach. You suffice with merely a tefach. Tefach mertzeboy. You should need 1.5 tefachim to support the brick. Answers the Gemara, Kivan the Rachav L'Kabel tefach. Since it is wide enough to receive a tefach, idach chatzi tefach, the extra half a tefach, which overlaps on both sides of the koira, malbin lebetina, he will go ahead and dab some cement on the bottom of the brick to connect it properly to the koira. Mashu ma'igisa, a little on this side, the mashu ma'igisa, a little on the outside, the kaima, and it will stay in position. So although the koira is only a tefach wide, it can properly support the ariach, which will be overlapping a bit on each side, by placing some cement under both of those sides to keep it in place. Amar Rabba Barafuna, koira she'amru, this koira that we described, tzricha shetei bria, kedei l'kabel ariach, the koira itself needs to be strong enough, made of material that can sustain the ariach. However, the ma'amidei koira, let's say there are some supports, some poles which are actually holding up the koira, keeping it in place. Do they need to be strong enough to support a koira with an ariach placed on top of it or not? So he says no. Only the koira itself needs to be strong enough. Ma'amidei koira, the supports of the koira, einon tzrichen, they don't need sheyu brian k'dei l'kabel koira v'ariach. They don't need to be strong enough to support a koira with an ariach on top of it, because actually we're not placing an ariach on the koira. So as long as the koira itself has that ability to support an ariach, that itself provides an indication of separateness. As we discussed, we're trying to show that this is a separate area, this is an entranceway. This koira has the appearance of a properly sized koira and made of the proper material that can be used for construction. So although practically if you place a brick on it, it's going to collapse, because the supports of the koira are not strong enough to support a koira and the ariach, it's okay. Rav Chizda Amar, no, we have to view it practically. Echad zeh v'echad zeh, the koira and the supports, tzrichen sheyu brian, we require that they be strong enough to l'kabel koira v'ariach, to support a koira and a ariach placed on top of it. Let's take a look at Rashi, 2 lines from the top. Umamidei koira. Says Rashi, menichal gabi say this, if you place the koira on top of these rods that are supporting it, ein tzrichen sheyu brian, they don't need to be strong enough l'kabel koira v'ariach, to support the koira and the ariach placed on top of it. Elo l'kabel koira levad, as long as they're strong enough to support the koira itself, that's okay. Explains Rashi, the whole lo yavi ariach Allah, practically we're not placing a brick on the koira. U'bekoira u'debe'inan kvius, the koira itself needs to present itself as something of permanence, as though it appears like a construction beam. So it should provide the proper indication of separateness. But the supports, we don't need to reckon with that. Like Tali Haker the Heker. It's not dependent on them. We don't reckon with his supports. We focus on the koira itself, which is providing that Heker. And since the koira itself conforms, both in its size and in its material, its durability, to the requirements, it appears like your typical construction beam. That is enough to provide the heker, the indication of separation, of a doorway impression, to separate the mavi from Shisarab. That's the first shita. Rav Chizda says no, we have to view it practically. Echad zeh, koira be'inon brias derech. The koira requires a strength to sustain the ariach, and likewise the mamidim, umamidea, its supporters, bo brios the koira ariach, they need to have the strength to actually sustain the koira and the riach placed on top of it. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav Sheshes, Hiniach koira al gabi mavi. So he placed the koira atop the entrance to the mavi. Uparas aleh machzelas. He wanted to improve things, so he ran a mat right next to the koira. He hung a mat alongside the koira to increase the closure of the entranceway. So you have the mavi here, the koira placed on top of the entranceway to the mavi, across the entranceway, and he placed the machzelas flush to the koira, hanging over the entranceway to the mavi. The problem is the machzelas, which can really serve as a mechitza, was not hanging all the way down to the ground. It stopped short, 3 tfachim to the ground below. So it doesn't really provide mechitza. Says Rav Sheshes, he ruined things for himself. Amar Rav Sheshes, niach koira al gabi mavi. He placed the koira alongside the entranceway to the mavi, uparatz aleh machzelas, and he also hung a machzelas on this koira. So now we have the koira crossing the entrance and the machzelas hanging across the entrance as well. And the machzelas came up short, 3 tfachim from the ground below. Koira ein kan, the koira is useless. Mechitza ein kan, and the mechitza as well is ineffective. Why? Koira ein kan, the koira is ineffective. The mechase, because it's covered up with the mechitza, with this machzelas, which takes away the hecker. It's not really noticeable. Therefore, it's ineffective. Mechitza ein kan, the mechitza as well is ineffective. The havila mechitza shagdaim baikim ba, since it doesn't reach the ground below, it doesn't really prevent passage. It is a mechitza where the g'dayim, the goats, are baikim ba, they access through it, they breach through it. It's not creating a contained entity, and therefore it doesn't work. What if we have a koira which comes short? It begins on one side of the mavi. It starts off from one wall on one side. Ve'ein in the gas because it's there, but it comes up short, doesn't reach the other side. Or in a case where we have 2 beams that are being used in tandem. The first koira starts at this wall. The second koira begins at the other side. But they don't meet each other. They come up short. And they don't meet each other. The halacha depends on the gap. What size gap was left in between? If it's smaller, a smaller gap than 3, we don't need to bring another koira, because less than 3 is considered to be closed up, and we view it as one continuous entity. It connects with each other. Shloisha, if the gap is 3 tfachim or greater, you need to bring another koira to replace this one. So according to Tanakama, Laved is dependent on 3 tfachim. He says Laved is anything less than 4 tfachim. If so, Pachas midal, if the gap is less than 4 tfachim, there's no need to bring another koira. Arba, but if it's 4 tfachim or more, you need to replace it with another koira. Continues the brayz. V'chein beis koiros hamatimus. If you have 2 narrow koiros lying side by side, so each one of these beams that are adjacent to each other are not wide enough to be considered a proper koira, because they're not a tefach wide. Loi bezu kedei l'kabel riach. This one is not wide enough, doesn't have the ability to support a brick. V'loi bezu kedei l'kabel riach. Neither does the second one have that ability. Can they both work together, be mitzaref, to be considered a koira? So it depends. If they're situated close enough to each other, that they have the ability between themselves to support this ariach who's lying on his side, on his narrow side. So the ariach is half of the levena. Levena is a brick which is 3 tfachim long by 3 tfachim wide. The ariach is half of that brick. So the ariach is 3 tfachim long by 1.5 wide. Now generally a koira needs to be a tefach wide in order to support the ariach who is lying on his narrow side, which is a tefach and a half, which is going to be properly supported by that koira. So the Brayse here is telling us, if these 2 beams are situated close enough to each other, that they have the ability to support the ariach who is lying on his narrow side, which is 1.5 tefachim. So even if there is, for instance, a tefach of gap between these 2 koiros, it's still okay, because the ariach, which is wider than a tefach, he's a tefach and a half. even on his narrow side, he can be supported properly by those two beams. A little bit on this beam, a little bit on the other beam. So if they support an Uriach who is sitting on his narrow side tefach, so even if there's a tefach in between these two beams, it's okay. There's no need to bring another kara. But if they're too far apart, they don't have the ability to support this Uriach, need to replace them with another kara. Now, he applies a leniency. He says, even if they're far apart, but they still have the ability to support the Uriach, which is going to be situated along his long side. So generally speaking, the way they use the bricks is in this manner. They don't point the brick into the building. Rather, they place it alongside the length of the wall, the way we described it. Shmuel will tell us that even if the curd doesn't have the ability, these two curds don't have the ability to support the brick, which is lying the typical way. Rather, he's lying along his longest side, then it's okay. If they're situated close enough that they can be makabel the Uriach, who is lying this way, over his long side, which is 3 tvachim, so they can support the Uriach in that manner, that's okay. No need to bring another kar. But otherwise, if they're too far wide apart, need to be replaced with another kar. So these twin kairos, let's say they weren't lying side by side. Rather, one was situated up high and one was down below. Can we connect these two kairos? Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Royan esal yoiniki lamata. We applied the concept of Royan, which was actually the shita of his father, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda held of the concept of Royan. We visualize things. Here as well, he says we can visualize Royan esal yoiniki lamata. We view the top one as though he's down adjacent to the bottom one. And now they can join forces and create a proper kara. Or conversely, we can lift the bottom one. We view it as though the achtoina is situated near the upper one, and now they can work together in tandem. Taisus brings a Gemara in Sukkah that was speaking where the two portions were actually within 3 tefachim, which is within the concept of lavud, and we can go ahead and bring them together. So this is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. In contrast with the Tanakama, who does not apply Ryan, and therefore in this case, when they're not lying next to each other, they can't practically support a brick, then it's ineffective. But he holds, you can go ahead and join them together. Let's view as though they're lying side by side. Ubalvad, provided that the upper one isn't beyond the 20 amma limit, in which case it's not suitable for kara. So it can't be beyond the 20 amas. The shear of 20 amas from the ground below, the tachtoina, or the lower portion of this kara, the lower kara can't be less than 10 tefachim. Tachtoina lamata masora can't be below the 10 tefach mark of the ground below, in which case it's unsuitable for kara. Okay, so this was the brisa. Says Abaye, Amar Abaye, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef, son of Rabbi Yehuda, Saval Kavod B'chada. It appears like he holds like his father Shita. Upalagale B'chada. So he holds like his father B'chada in one aspect. Upalagale B'chada. And he disagrees with him when it comes to another aspect. Saval Kavod B'chada. He agrees with his father in one halacha, the Islay Roin, because he subscribes to the concept of Roin. We visualize things. And therefore he says, we can go ahead and treat the kar which is lying beyond, far away from the bottom kar, as though they're together and adjacent to each other. Since the configuration, since the size of those kars conform to the proper size. So we apply the concept of Royan. So when it comes to that, he agrees to his father, who applies Royan. And now Mishnah, he says he can use straw, etc. Because Royan, as long as the size conforms, the position is irrelevant. So when it comes to that, he agrees to his father. When it comes to another halacha, he disagrees with his father. Why? Rabbi Yehuda holds that even a kar which is beyond 20 amas is kosher. as we learned back on the Mishnah Daf Beis. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, in contrast to his son who holds, only if it's within 20 amas, it is kosher. But if it's beyond 20 amas, it's unsuitable, as he just told us. You must make sure that both portions of that kaira, of this twin kaira, are situated within the prescribed shiur of 20 amas. Getting back to our Mishnah, where Yehuda tells us that as long as the kaira is wide enough to accept the ariach, that's okay, as long as it's wide enough, even if it's not strong enough. In contrast with the Chachamim who hold, it needs to be strong enough as well. Masnei Rabbi Yehuda, L'chia Barav. So Rabbi Yehuda taught, apparently he was the Rebbe of Chia, the son of Rav, so he taught him Kamei de Rav. This took place in the presence of Rav, the presence of the father. So he taught him as follows: Ruchava Avu B'Shein Abriya. That according to the Shita of Chachamim, as long as the kair is wide enough, has that tefach, that's okay, even though it's not bria, it's not strong enough to support the brick. So when Rav heard this, he corrected him. Amalei Esnai. Teach him the correct version. Ruchava bria. Yes, it needs to be ruchava and bria, according to the Chachamim. Says the Gemara, is that true? Va'amar b'lo yamar Rav. He told us the name of Rav himself. Ruchava ava arba. If the kair is 4 tefachim wide, which is very significant, ava b'shein abri, even though it's not strong enough to sustain a brick, that's okay. So apparently, supporting the brick is not a precondition. Says the Gemara, there it's different. Rechava arba shiny. If it's so wide, it's 4 tefachim wide, that's such a significantly sized kaira, which provides indication heker. Even if it's not strong enough to sustain a brick, it is kosher. But a smaller sized kaira, for instance, if it's only a tefach wide, certainly needs to actually have the ability to support a brick. Continues the Gemara, Hoises Shalkash. So this is Rabbi Yehuda saying that even if it's not strong enough to actually support, it's okay. For instance, if it was made of straw or reeds, and we view it as though it's made of metal. Says, well, my Kamashwan, what is he teaching us with these demonstrations, with these examples of straw and reeds? He already told us that if it's not strong enough, it's okay, because we treat it as though it's strong enough. Why bring these examples? What's the added chiddush? Says the Gemara, Damrin and Roin is coming to tell us that we view things. Hainu hach. This is merely a repetition of what we already just said. That if it's not strong enough, we apply Roin. Why bring these examples? Says the Gemara, there is a chiddush. Ma'odatem, perhaps I would say. B'mina amrina. If the kaira consists of the min, the type of material, which is generally strong enough to support a brick. For instance, you make it of wood. So a wooden beam generally has the ability to sustain a brick. So perhaps I would say, only in the case where you use the proper material, then we say roin amrinan. We apply the concept of roin since it appears to be similar to your standard construction beam, which has the ability to support. But shaloi b'mina, if it's not the same type of material, for instance, using straw reeds, which generally don't have the ability to support a brick, perhaps over there, loy amrina, I would not apply the concept of roin, because it's evident and clear. This thing is soft and flimsy and cannot sustain a brick. Kamash malon, the chiddush here is that even in this case, we apply roin as long as it conforms to the size of your standard beam. That is sufficient. Another example we have is akuma. If it's crooked, placed at an angle which it can't support a brick, roin haisakilu pshuto, viewed as though it's sitting flat and straight and can support a brick. Pshita, isn't this self-evident? Why would this case be different? Certainly, we can conclude that roin will be applied here as well. Why add this example? Says Makamash Malon to Rav Zera. The chiddush here is like Rav Zera described. Don't Rav Zera. He b'soich hamavi. Let's say the kaira is within the confines of the mavi, so it's okay, but it's bent outward. Vakmamisa, its bent portion is chutz lamavi. So you have the mavi at the entranceway to the kaira at the entranceway to the mavi, but it protrudes out of the mavi. It sticks out. It has a bent portion which is sticking out of the mavi into Shusarabim. Or, he b'soich esrim, the kaira itself is within 20, vakmamisa, its bent portion is l'malam esrim. It's beyond 20. So if it's lying on top of the mavi, and it's bent upward, with that bent portion being beyond the 20 amma limit. Or, third case is, he l'malam asar, the kaira itself is above 10 tefachim, so it's okay. Vakmu misa lamat masar, but its bent portion dips down below 10 tfachim. So what's halacha? Royan, we visualize, kol she'ilu yinotel akmu misa. If you would remove that bent portion from the Korah, and what do you have left? Ve'ein benzel zeh shloisha. And between the remaining portions of the Korah is a gap of less than 3 tfachim. So for instance, if the Korah is here, and it's lifting beyond 20 amas, so if you remove this bent portion, and you take a look at the remaining 2 parts of the Korah which are within 20, and the gap between them is 3 tfachim, is less than 3 tfachim, which is loved, then you're okay, they connect each other, we ignore the portion which is protruding beyond 20. Ein tzarich lavi Korah acheres. Need not bring another Korah. Vim lav. But if the gap between the remaining portion of the Korah is 3 or more, in which case they can't connect each other, it's ineffective, and you need to bring another Korah. Tzarich lavi Korah acheres. So this is the chiddush of the Mishnah. A bent Korah in this manner can be used. According to Rabbi Yehuda, despite the fact that it's crooked and you can't practically place a brick on it, we view it as though it's straight. Says Mahanami Pshita. This is also Pashat. Why would I think that we cannot apply Lavad in this case? What's the problem? What's the point of Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he need to add an example of Akuma to his list? Says the Gemara, there's one case that involves a Chiddush. He b'seich mavi. When the Korah is within the mavi, and its bent portion protrudes out of the mavi, it's tzrichale. He needs to teach us that even this case is fine. Why? Perhaps I would say, Leichosh, let me be concerned. Dilma, Osilam Shuche Basra. Perhaps one will mistakenly continue carrying along the Korah, along its crooked portion, along the portion which is actually outside of the mavi. You won't differentiate. He'll carry alongside the Korah, even alongside the portion which is already in Rishus Harabim. Perhaps we'll create that confusion. You cannot use this Korah. Kamash Malon. So he teaches us, no, there's no such concern, and the Korah can be used even in such a manner. So in summary, we learned about the Shiur Korah. All agree, Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda, that the Korah needs to be a tefach wide. Tanakama maintains, it also needs to be strong enough bria to support a ariach. Regarding the supports of the Korah, the Mamidei Korah, the rods which are supporting the Korah, are they required to have the ability to support a Korah with a brick on top of it? We have a machlekes. So the Korah itself needs to be strong enough, and the Gemara added that if the Korah is wide, it's 4 tefachim wide in this case, it does not need to have the ability to support a brick because of its large size and significance. Rabbi Yehuda maintains, even if the Korah is not bria strong enough to sustain a brick, for instance, if it's made of straw, or even if the position is a problem, it's lying crooked, it's round, or as the Gemara told us, if we have a Korah split into 2, with one portion of the Korah up on top, the other one down below, we apply the concept of royan, we visualize it as though it's a proper Korah, and it provides the heker. The Gemara tells us if one attaches a mat, he hangs it from the Korah to block the doorway, and it doesn't reach the ground below, it's possible. Because that 3 tefachim gap allows traffic through, and it does not constitute a mechitza. What if we have 2 narrow beams lying side by side? Tanakama tells us if they're close enough to support a brick on his narrow side, then it's fine. Rav Shimon Gamliel says even if they're wider apart, they can support the brick who's lying on his long side, which is 3 tefachim. That too is okay. Continues the Gemara. Agula, if the Korah is round, we treat it as though it's square, and this again is Shittas Rabbi Yehuda, who applies the concept of royat. Says the Gemara here too, what is the chiddush? Hasulamali. What is the chiddush here? This is merely just another example of royat. Seifat strichle, it is the last portion of the Mishnah, which is coming to teach us a chiddush, to give us the formula. Whenever there's a circumference of 3 tefachim, yesh rachav tefach, you are sure that the roichav of this beam is a tefach. So that's the formula. It is 3-1. So that formula is necessary to be taught in our Mishnah to dictate to us the proper dimension of this Korah. It says, how do I know that this formula is meant to be applied? Ask the Rosh, what do you mean, how do I know? Take a look. When something has a circumference of 3, has the diameter of 1, says the Rosh, because we know that it's not entirely accurate. This is the formula called pi. So it's not exactly 3 to 1, 3.14, etc. It's inaccurate. Nevertheless, the Mishnah tells us when to apply this formula, despite the fact that it's not exactly correct. Because the Torah is not makpid, it's not so particular that a person should go ahead and measure things so perfectly exact. The Torah suffices with this formula to apply the 3 to 1 formula. The Rambam also says that we know it's not an exact formula, nevertheless, not Torah. This is the formula meant to be applied, and that's the Gemara's kasha. How do we know that indeed this is the correct formula to apply to halachos of Torah? Rabbi Yochanan, Amakra, the Torah describing the Yam Mishasa Shloimei, that Shloimei Melech built this large pool. The pasuk describes it as follows: Vayasas hayam mutzak eser ba'ama, misvasei atzvasei. So this yam, this pool, had an interior size of 10 amos, from one end to the other. Ogoy saviv, it was round. V'chamesh ba'ama kamasei, 5 amos in height. And what was the circumference? V'kav shloshim ba'ama. A circle of 30 amma, Yosef Oisei Saviv, surrounded this pool. So you see that something which has a diameter of 10 has a circle of 30. Says the Gemara, but you didn't take into account the thickness of the ridge of the wall. The 10 amos described here is the interior space within the pool. But the circle of 30 was describing the circumference outside the pool. What about this safa, the lip, meaning the thickness of the wall, which adds to the diameter, in which case it's more than 10 amos. So how can you have a circumference of merely 30? The safa, the lip, was merely very thin. Torah describes it as a sfas perach shoishan. It was thin like a petal of a rose. So it was very thin and doesn't really add to the diameter. The thickness of the yam was a tefach down below. So the safa was like a perach shoishan, very thin. Says more, but that it still takes up some space. What about that little bit of thickness of the lip? You must take that into consideration. Says the Gemara, when we took the count of 30 of the circumference, that too was referring to the interior space. So since the interior was 10 and no more than 10, so the circumference was 30. Tanya Reb Chia, Yam Shasa Shloimei, this Yam of Shloimei Melech, Hayamachzik Meya v'chamisha mikveh tahara. It accommodated 150 mikvahs. Rashi says each mikvah is meant to have 40 sa'ah, and this Yam Shal Shloimei contained a space, an area, amount of water, which was equal to 150 mikvahs. Says, well, let's analyze things. Let's work it out. Michti, let's take a look. Mikvah hakama havi. How large, how much water goes into a mikvah? Barmsa, kedasani v'rochas p'sorei b'mayim, b'mei mikvah. Person is table in a mikvah, called p'sorei. The person says, kol p'sorei. So a person needs to be table all at once. Therefore, the mikvah, the space and the water needs to accommodate the entire person all at once. Mayim shekol gufa ilben. Needs to be water which accommodates the entire person at once. What size mikvah is required to accommodate a person who is an amma wide? Mikvah needs to be configured as a amma al amma, an amma wide and amma long, with a height of 3 ammas, which conforms to the size of a person and accommodates a person within. How much water? Chacham calculated that the shiur of a mikvah is 40 sa, which is the amount of water which is contained in this size area of amma by amma with a height of 3. Okay, so the shiur of a mikvah is 1 by 1 times 3 for a total of 3 square amma, and it equals to 40 sa of water. Now let's analyze the size of the Yam Shasa Shloimei, for which we said that it accommodated 150 mikvahs. So the Yam Shasa Shloimei was 10 by 10 with a height of 5 ammas. So how many square amma is that? 10 by 10 by 5 is 500 square amma. Kama havalu chomesh mea gamidi, for a total of 500 square amma. L'tlas meya. So let's take that 500. Let's take 300 of that 5. How many mikvahs will fit into that 300? So mikvah is again 1 long, 1 wide, and 3 high. So 1 by 1 by 3 is a total of 3 square amma. So into 300 square amma, how many mikvah fit into it? Meya accommodates 100. So you've taken the 500 amma of the yam of Shleima, take off 300, which accommodates 100 mikvahs, with each mikvah being 3 ammas. You have another 200 ammas remaining. So l'meya v'chamshin, within 150 of those amma, how many mikvahs fit in? Each mikvah is 3. Chamshin, for a total of 50. 50 times 3 equals 150. So why does the Yam Shel Shleima need to be 500 ammas? But Arba Me'eh V'chamshin Sageh, if it would only be 450 square amma, it would accommodate 150 mikvahs, with each mikvah being 3 ammas. Says the Gemara, Hanamilu B'Ribuah. This cheshbon, this calculation, is only if we're assuming that the Yam of Shleima was built as a square. So if it's a square, 10 by 10, with a height of 5, that equals 500 square amma. So you're left with extra space. But it actually wasn't a square. Yam Shas Shleima, Ogalaya, it was a circle, which certainly takes up less space, has less square footage than a square area. It's actually 25% less. Says Ramichte, let's take a look. Kama Meruba Yasser al Igel Revia. How much greater is a square than a circle? It's 25% more. Rashi explains, because, very simple. You have a diameter, a circle with a diameter of an amma, that gives you a circumference of 3. But if it's a square amma instead of a circle amma, then the line around that square is 4 ammas. So it just changed from 3 to 4. So apparently the space of the square occupies 25% more than the circle. Of course, we're speaking about an area which has equal angles on all sides. So a square is greater, larger, 25% in size than a circle. If so, says the Gemara, we're going to get stuck again. Because this number of 500 that we came up with was based on a square. 10 by 10, 10 long, 10 wide, by 5 height. So it was working with the assumption that it was a square, giving us 500. Now we must deduct from that an amount of 25%, because the Yam Shel Shleima was a circle. Let's analyze. La'arameya. Let's take that original number 500. Let's address 400 of that and deduct 25%. So 400 turns into 300. How many mikvahs can that accommodate? A mikvah being 3 amma square. So 300 ammas will accommodate 100 mikvahs. La'arameya, the original 400 would actually now turns into 300 because you deducted 25%. Meya accommodates 100 mikvahs because 300 will accommodate 100 times 3. L'meya. Now what's remaining from that original 500? You already deducted 400, you're remaining with 100. Now that 100 was based on a square, that the yam was a square. Now we must deduct 25%, a quarter of that 100, equaling only 75. How many mikvahs are included in 75 square amma? 25. L'meya esrim v'chamisha. 25 mikvahs, each mikvah being 3 ammas. So how many mikvahs in total is this Yam Shas Shleima accommodating? Only 125. Hani meya v'esrim v'chamisha havalu. You only have 125, not 150. So how can we say, how can Rav Chia tell us that the Yam Shas Shleima accommodated 150 mikvahs? So either way, it's difficult. If the Yam was square, it's above and beyond 150 mikvahs. If it was circle, then it's less than 150. Says the Gemara, we have a compromise. Partly square, partly circled. The bottom 3 ammas were a square, the top 2 ammas were a circle. In which case it will conform to 150 mikvahs. Tani Ram Bar Yecheskel, Yam Shas Shleima, Sholish ammas tachtonis merubayis. The lower 3 ammas were actually square. So let's calculate. So if you have 10 long, 10 wide, by 3 amma high, So it's a total of 300 square amas. 300 square amas will accommodate how many mikveh? Each mikveh is 3 amas square, will accommodate 100 mikveh. So that takes care of the bottom portion of the yam. The top portion was circle. Ushtai milyonis agules. The top 2 amas was circle. So what is the entire area of that top portion? So if it would be a square, in which case it would be measured as 10 by 10 with a height of 2, that would equal 200 square amma. But now that that top portion is circle, deduct 25% from 200, giving you 150, which accommodate how many mikvahs? 50 mikvahs, each one being 3 amas. So you add this 50 to the original 100, you have exact total of 150. So it works out. Says the Gemara, so addressing this brisa of Rambam Cheskel, who described the bottom portion being square and the top round, how do you know? Certainly you can't say it was in the reverse, that the bottom was round, the top square. The pasuk describes the safa, the lip, as being round. So it must be the top was round. How do you know the top 2 amas were round? Perhaps it was only the top amma that was round, but the second amma was actually square, giving you a larger area. It says more like you can't say that. The pasuk says, Alpaim bas yochel. The pool of Shlomo Melech, it contained 2,000 bas. Bas kamahavir. How much is a bas? Shalosh sin, 3 sa. How do we know? The chsiv, maser habas min hakur. Bas is a maser, a tenth of a kur. A kur is 30 sa, so bas is 3 sa. The pasuk says it had 2,000 bas. 2,000 times 3 is 6,000 sa. Da'avalhu shita alpha gravy. It totals 6,000 of this measurement, meaning 6,000 sa. So once we know that the Yam Shal Shlomo was 6,000 sa'ah, that equals 150 mikveh. Because each mikveh is 40 sa'ah. So 40 times 150 is 6,000. And this proves that evidently the configuration of the Yam Shal Shlomo was the way that we described it, which will equal in space to 150 mikveh. Says the Gemara, how can you say that the Yam contained 2,000 bas? There's another pasuk which seems to indicate otherwise. V'ksiv machzik batim shloishes halaf, 3,000 bas. Says mahula gudsha. That's including the heaping portion, which actually adds a third to the total. So instead of 2,000, it turns into 3,000. Amrabai shma mina hai gudsha tilsa. Apparently, the heaping portion adds a third to the total. Evidently, we're speaking about when we fill it with dry material, which can form that heap, and that heap totals a third of the entire content. So it turns from 2,000 bas to 3,000 bas. So it's more of a Tananami. And we find likewise in the Mishnah, which teaches us that the heap is a third of the total. Shida, this wagon, teva, a large chest, a migdal, this large closet, kaveras akash, a large basket made of straw, a kaveras akana made of reeds, uboir, sfina alexandrus, or a pit meant to store fresh water in the sfina alexandrus. So all these different types of kalim, even though they have bottoms, they're large enough to contain 40 sa of liquid, which equal 2 kur of dry. They're considered to be tar due to their large size and the fact that they're not really portable due to their large size and their weight and the fact that they can contain so much. They don't have a din of a klif and makabel tumah. Now the fact that the Mishnah says when it comes to liquid is 40 sa, and that equals 2 kur, which is 60 sa of dry. How do the two numbers work? Apparently, when it's dry material, it can be heaped, which adds a third to the total, which turns it from 40 sa to 60 sa. So in summary, we learned that the Yam Shal Shlomo equaled in size and content to 400 mikvahs. How do we get to that? A mikvah which is an amma long and amma wide by 3 ammas in height. So it's 3 amma square. Time that by 150 equals 450 square amma. The Yam Shal Shlomo initially we figured was square, which is 10 long, 10 wide by 5 height, which equals 500 square amma, which is too much. We proceeded that it was round, which deducts 25%, which equals 375, which is not enough. We concluded at the bottom 3 ammas was square, so it's 10 by 10 by 3, gives you an equal total of 300 ammas square, and the top portion, the top 2 ammas was round, so it's 10 by 10 by 2, but deduct 25% from 200, which is 150 for a total of 450 amos square that can accommodate 150 mikvahs. Continues the Mishnah. L'chayin she'amru, the l'chayin that was spoken about regarding placement at the entrance to the mavi. How large are they? Goivan asar tzfachim need to be 10 tfachim high. V'rachvan v'avin koshu, their width and their thickness, even a minute amount. Rabbi Yisrael rachvan gimel tfachim, their width needs to be at least 3 tfachim, which is beyond the Shiur of Lavet. Says the Gemara, l'chayin she'amru, the Mishnah begins with a lashon rabim, a plural term. The lechis that were said. Why did you need 2 lechis and a mavi? Lema, shall we say, Tzna in the Mishnah teaches us stama. The anonymous Mishnah is Kerbat Lezer. Following his shita, the Amar l'chayayim binan. 2 lechis are required, 1 on each side of the entranceway, and not like the Shizas Rabbanan that suffices with merely 1 lechi. Says no. My l'chayayim and l'chayayim di alma. The Mishnah is choosing just a general term. The lechis that are placed by the general mavis, but certainly 1 lechi is enough. If that's the case, Koyer Nami, in the Mishnah of Koyer as well, it should say, Koyrais, Nisni Koyrais, my Koyrais, Koyrais Dalma, in reference to the general Koyer that are placed by all the mavis. Why then does the Mishnah earlier tell us, Ha Koyrosh Amru, a Lashon Yachad, a singular term? It says, well, you're right. Elahachi Kamer. This is what the Mishnah over here means to say. Oysan l'chayayin, shenechalku, behen, Reb Lezer v'chachamim. We know there's a machlekes that Reb Lezer requires 2, Chacham require 1. So in reference to that machlekes, those l'chayayin, meaning that machlekes in Reb Lezer and Chachamim, how are those lechis meant to be configured? Goivan asar tzfachim, v'roichvan v'avin kolshu 10 high, a width and thickness of even a kolshu. V'kama kolshu. How much is a kolshu? Even if it's only thick like a strap used to tie together the garment, then that is sufficient. The Torah Sadeshan says this is accurate, meaning it can't be less than this. It needs to be at least this thickness, which is actually the width of an etzba. Tana we learned, if one placed his lechi halfway into his mavi, not at the entranceway, then it's okay. We can only use the mavi up until that point. Pshita, isn't that simple? Why would I think that I can use past the lechi? Says the Gemara, rather say like this: Yesh lechatzi mavi. The chiddush here is that he's allowed to use the interior of the mavi up until the lechi. Pshita, this is also obvious. Why not? Perhaps I would say, lechash is a concern. Dilma asay lishtamushi bekule. Perhaps he might mistakenly continue using the mavi area even beyond the lechi point. Kamash Malon, the chiddush here is there's no such concern, and he can use the interior portion of the lechi of the mavi up until the lechi. Amarava. Also lechi lemavi, he affixed the lechi to his mavi, v'igbiya min hakar shloisha, and he lifted it off the ground 3 tfachim. Oishe fliga min hakar shloisha, or he placed a distance of 3 tfachim between the lechi and the wall. Lo yasa lo klum, it's ineffective. The chiddush here is afilu lev shim gamliel, the Amar who said amrina loved, that loved is applied when it's less than 4 tfachim. He will agree in this case that doesn't work, even though the gap is less than 4. Hanemini lamala. That's only when the gap is up on top. For instance, the koira on top is less than 4 tfachim to the wall of the mavi. That's okay. We consider it to be connected. Avalamata. When the gap is down below, kivan dahavi mechitza shakdoyim boikua. Since this mechitza is not really containing properly, because of this gap, it allows the goats to breach through it. Loi kamar, even he will not say that it's considered to be one and connected. So this is lechi. It's meant to serve as a sort of mechitza here. It's being placed on the ground to make that containment. So if there's a gap down below of 3 tfachim or more, all will agree that it's ineffective. Rabbi Yosef, Rachman Gimel Tfachim, the lechi needs to be 3 tfachim in width. Amr Rabbi Yosef, Amr Rabbi Mashmul. Ein halach Rabbi Yosef. V'loi behilmi, v'loi b'chayayin. We don't follow Rabbi Yosef's halacha, not with regards to hilmi, the salt water made on Shabbos. This is discussed in Sechas Shabbos. We don't concur with his chumrah there, nor with his chumrah by lechis, where he requires 3 tfachim. Behilmi Amrslan. You actually told us that by Hilmi we don't follow Rabbi Yosef's shita. Rashi explains to us that Rabbi Yosef fell ill, and due to his illness he forgot things that he learned and taught. So Rav Huna Rachina reminded him, now you're telling us that we don't follow the halacha like Rabbi Yosef, by Hilmi, nor by the Chayayin. Actually, you never told us in this manner. When it came to Hilmi, you told us we don't follow Rabbi Yosef. But when it comes to L'chayayin, you never told us that we're not meant to follow Rabbi Yosef. So Rav Yosef responded to him, why would you differentiate? Why over there would you say that we don't follow Rav Yosef? Because he's a yachad, the pligi Rabban Alei, because the Rabban, or the majority, disagree with him. The same thing here. L'chayai nami. Pligi Rabban Alei, they disagree with him. So why would I think here to follow Rav Yosef's shita? Amalei, so Rav Huna responded, there's a difference. Shani l'chayayim. L'chayayim are different. Mishum the koi Rebbe kavaseh. Because we see that Rebbe, and Daf Yud, the Gemara concluded that Rebbe holds like Rav Yosef, who requires the lechet to be 3 tefachim. So perhaps that would be a reason to follow Rav Yosef's shita. Continues the Gemara. Rav Chumi Rasni Hachi. Rav Chumi presented it as follows: Amar Rav Yehuda Breder Shmuel Bashilas Mishmei the Rav Ein Loch Rav Yosef Loi BeHilmi Loi BeChayayin. In Hilmi and L'Chayayin we don't follow Rav Yosef's shita. Amrle. So the other people responded to Rav Chumi, who dictated the statement. Amrus, did you really say this? Amar Lahu, no, I didn't say it. The Ritva explains that he changed his mind. Amar Rava. So Rava said, Halekim, the name of Hashem, Lashon Shvuah. Amra, certainly he said this. I actually learned it from him. That the halacha does not follow Rav Yosef in Hilmi nor in L'Chayayin. Says the Gemara, so why did he change his mind? Why did Rav Chumi revert? Because Rav Yosef would generally present his logic, the reason for his positions, with such clarity. And therefore, we meant to follow Rav Yosef's shita, which was presented so convincingly. Therefore, he wanted to follow Rav Yosef. We have a machlekes. The Chacham maintain a lechay could even be small size. Rav Yosef requires 3 tefachim. Hilchas samai. How does halacha follow? Rabbi responded, Puk chazi, go out and take a look. My amma davar. What is the nation doing? And certainly the minhag is even a kol shul. Some related this conversation on the following topic: one drinks water to quench his thirst. That's the bracha that he makes before drinking. Rav Tafin Omer, the bracha before drinking is actually Boyer Nefashes, Rabbis V'Chasroina, and Hashem created Nefashes, many Nefashes with their needs, Al Kol Mashabrasa, in addition to other things that he created for them. That's the bracha before drinking. What does the halacha say? Which bracha is meant to be said? Amalei Sabai responded, Puk Chazei, go take a look. My Amadvar, what everybody is doing, and certainly the prevailing custom is to make Shakol Niyah B'Dvari. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We began discussing halacha b'kaira, which needs to be a tefach wide to support this brick. According to Tanakama, it needs to be strong enough to support the brick, or wide 4 tefachim. Do the poles that are supporting the kaira need to be strong enough to sustain the kaira with its brick, or machlekes? According to Rav Yehuda, even if it's not strong enough to support a brick, even if it's crooked, round, one part of the kaira is up on top, one on bottom, we apply the concept of royin, and we view it as though it's properly configured and properly placed. We learned that if one spreads a mat alongside the kaira and blocks the kaira, it's puzzle. What if we have 2 narrow beams lying side by side? Tanakama tells us if they're close enough to support a brick on his narrow side, then it's fine. Rav Shimon Gamliel says even if they're wider apart, they can support the brick who's lying on his long side, which is 3 tefachim, then that too is okay. We learned from the Yam Shas Shleima that the circumference of a circle is 3 times its diameter. We proceeded with the halacha b'lechi, which needs to be 10 tefachim in height, the width and thickness, even a kol shul, like the strap of a garment. If one chooses to place his lechi somewhere in the middle of his mavi, he may use the interior portion of that mavi up until the lechi, and the lechi must be placed within 3 tefachim to the wall, and 3 tefachim of the ground in order to be kosher.